instant, God removed the pearl of reasoning from his mind. And suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar was no better than a beast. He was something as long as God gave him a reasoning power. When God removed that, he was nothing. And at the end, Nebuchadnezzar says, I now praise and honor the God of heaven because he is able to humble those who have a haughty spirit. So the fear of the Lord entails great humility. The Bible also says that fearing God entails a spirit of trust in God. It means to trust in him. Notice Psalm 115 and verse 11. Psalm 115 and verse 11. It says, you who fear the Lord, trust in the Lord. See, those who fear the Lord, they trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. But of course the question is, what does it mean to trust in the Lord? By far, folks, the most predominant connotation of the expression fear of the Lord or fear God in Scripture has to do with a response of willing obedience to God. You know, my colleague here at Fresno Central Church, Elder James Finn, many times has said that obedience is what? Obedience is the highest form of worship. It's also the highest form of fearing the Lord. You say, how is this? We're going to notice now several verses in Scripture that show that fearing God leads to a change in our lifestyle. It leads to loving obedience to God's commandments. It leads us to do what God says that we're supposed to do. For example, you remember when Abraham got to the city of Gerar, the king there was Abimelech. And Abraham was afraid that Abimelech was going to kill him and take his wife, Sarah, because it appears that Sarah was pretty good looking. Even though at that time she was up in years, but she was still pretty good looking. And notice what Abraham said, the justification for lying and saying, no, she's my sister. He didn't tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. He told a partial truth with the intent to deceive. Notice Genesis 20 and verse 11. And Abraham said, because I thought, listen to this, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my wife. What happens when there's no fear of the Lord in a certain place? People what? People kill. Are you with me? In other words, when there's no fear of God, there's no obedience. There's violence, in other words. Notice Exodus 1 verse 17. You remember that Pharaoh said that they were supposed to kill all of the male children? You remember that? 2 years and under? Well, the fact is that the Hebrew midwives did not kill the children. Why didn't they? Notice Exodus 1 verse 17. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. In other words, where the fear of God is present, your life is safe. Where the fear of God is not present, people violate the commandment, thou shalt not kill. Notice Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verses 11 to 13. Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verses 11 to 13. And by the way, Solomon knows what he's talking about. Because Solomon, he went off on a tangent away from the Lord for years. He became almost an atheist. He became an infidel. So he knows what he's talking about. He wrote the book of Ecclesiastes when he was an old man and he had returned to the Lord. And he's telling people what life is like away from God.